Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Ian is a Weirdo. Today, we're doing part two of my interview. Lori is here to help me. Hi, Lori.
Hello.
And we're going to be going over kind of my young adulthood and like relationships and those types of things that were affected by my mental health. So, thank you, Lori, for helping me out today.
Absolutely, no problem. I am happy to help. I think what you're doing is really valuable for Mental Health Awareness Month, but just in general for this to be out there for somebody to look at and watch and connect with.
Thank you. Happy to help.
Yes. All right. So we're now past high school, and we need to know. Okay, so this is past high school. This is quite a Oh, I was skipping to part three. I'm like, whoa, that's a big jump. Okay, there we go. It's like, here we go. This makes more sense. What we learned in the last one is you had a toxic um, experience with one of your medications,
Mhm.
and it was horrendous, but you recovered and you were okay, so you weren't taking any meds. So, what drove your decision to start taking medication again?
So after I literally almost died from taking the medications. I was so scared of taking these psych meds, and a couple of years went by, and I was kind of just like looking at my life objectively, and while I'm a big believer that psych meds can't fix everything. They can't do the work that you do in
Mhm.
therapy. They can't stop situations that are, crazy and hectic in your life. But if you've got some brain chemistry issues going on, that they can support you. I believe that even when I wasn't taking meds, I just believed that the fear kind of overrode all those feelings. But I was looking at my life, and I was working really hard. I had gone back to school to get my aesthetics degree and licensure and all of that. And there were just some moments of my life that I couldn't regulate with working hard and pushing through it and all of this stuff, all of these quote unquote tool. I mean, they're tools, but also like sometimes they're a little maladaptive, right? Where it's like you're
Mm,
pushing through it so
mm,
much that you
mm.
are like like you're ignoring the problem.
Yes.
And so that wasn't working for me. And I started to see myself really not um able to cope like my peers now that I had, was around people who were in their 20s, not in their
Mm,
teens. They're starting to
mm,
be able to regulate better. I'm still not. And
mm.
and so all of that kind of made me go, I think that I really need medication to function. And I think that the fear that I have, like I can tackle that, and I'm past that, um, and it's worth it. And it has been. I've been on meds since.
You've been on meds since then, and I assume your prescriber knew the history there, um, and took that into account to help potentially reduce that anxiety about it. Or was that
At the
just you?
beginning,
Okay, at the beginning.
at the beginning, I definitely talked about it more. I also was there were some other issues that made the made me more made me more likely to be toxic at the same like
Oh,
prescribed
okay.
level. If you're dehydrated, if you're underweight, like all these things, which I was like every everything like that, that can cause toxicity. And if those conversations were ever had with me, I don't remember them.
Mm.
Um, so, um, yeah, I, I, I and so in the beginning, getting back on meds, I had more conversations about them. Now it's something I rarely talk about unless
Mm.
um, the question comes up. But yeah, I still get I still get my blood levels checked and stuff like that pretty frequently. You have to
And
with lithium.
and that is important. Yes, that's very important. Um, Even my cat, who's on Kitty Prozac, has to get his blood levels checked to make sure he's staying healthy on with that medication. And obviously, it's a very different situation, but
I'm exactly like your cat. You're totally right.
I forgot you are a cat. We just
I am a cat. Need to get those little kitty headphones.
there you go. That's what you need.
Scotty and I will be indistinguishable.
That's it. But yeah, it's good that it has shifted to not being like a center of the conversation and you adjust and go as you need to. That's good. But you got the appropriate support in the beginning of that transition back into medication. The next question is about your diagnoses. As you got older, how have your diagnoses changed?
Yes. So this is and I think this also plays into part of why I had lithium toxicity. So
Mhm.
I originally was diagnosed with bipolar 2. There's a couple
Okay.
different bipolar diagnoses. So there's bipolar 1, there's bipolar 2, which are the most common that you'll hear about. There's cyclothymia, which is kind of like more like big, broad, like lows. Still bipolar disorder. It's not a depression. Uh,
Mhm.
uh, but and then there's like kind of this like catch-all bipolar that's like
Okay.
not otherwise specified slash bipolar 4. It's very rarely used, but so I originally got diagnosed with bipolar 2, and bipolar 2 is marked by having I think it's at least a week or longer depressive episode. You
Mm.
have hypomania, which is
Oh.
um, elevated mood that lasts less than 7 days.
Mm.
Um, and uh, hypomania and mania can look like excitability and like you're on top of the world. You have these grandiose feelings. Yeah, the delusions, people thinking that they're Jesus, like all of these things that people often associate with bipolar disorder are like those are usually mania. Um,
Right.
and uh, but with bipolar 1, that you have to have a 7 day or longer manic episode. Um, what I did not know early in my diagnosis kind of timeline is that irritability can also be a huge um, sign of mania.
Right.
And for me, it really is like I can have some of those like other elevated feelings, but I'm never like the happy person. And that that was part of the reason why I didn't get diagnosed with bipolar 1 when I was younger. I was
Mm.
having these manic episodes and I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping, and I was severely underweight, which,
You
bad.
posted about
Right?
that. Yes.
Yeah.
Radiance posts about
And
that.
and I like that was part of what led to my toxicity was that I was like a
Right.
hundred pounds. And granted, I'm not tall, like still,
But
I
still.
know what, yeah. Um, and And so I got moved from bipolar 2 to bipolar 1, which
Okay.
slightly changed my medication treatment. And uh definitely changed my like what I need to look out for kind of conditions a little bit more.
Right.
Like I had to be more alert. Because depression, you can kind of tell when you're feeling that way. Mania, you don't necessarily know. So that was a big one. I got diagnosed with borderline personality disorder when I was younger, and I definitely think that that was an accurate diagnosis. However, borderline personality disorder is the only personality disorder that you can actually grow, heal, and lose the diagnosis.
Because it comes
And
from trauma, or is
yes,
that why? Okay.
and believe this, I believe all personality disorders are trauma informed, and it's like how your brain like works with
Gotcha.
it. Um, Something about the way that your brain processes trauma into borderline, it can unwork and unlearn some of those behaviors. Um, and so like right now, I'm at a place where like I have borderline traits, but I
Mm,
don't have borderline personality
gotcha.
disorder, which is pretty
Gotcha.
sweet. I'm healing
Yeah.
from something. I'm super
That's,
excited.
yeah, that is great.
I got diagnosed with PTSD, which that was a big slap to the face because there's
Mm.
no when you think you grow up in a normal environment and someone tells you that you're
Yeah.
traumatized and like that's
Yeah.
not normal, you're like,
Yeah.
excuse me, what is going on? So that was, for me, was a big like reset to my whole system,
Sure.
and still kind of constantly working through that. Uh, Anxiety's always been there. Agoraphobia has been something I've developed as I've grown older, partly because of my bipolar.
Mhm.
I kind of get this fear of what I might be doing if I like um where's like if you had like a crazy like had like a rabid animal in a cage,
Oh, okay.
and someone like opens it up and lets them out, you're like, why would you open that cage? And to me, like that's a lot of where my like
Okay.
the basis of my agoraphobia comes out, is like I see myself as the rabid animal,
Right.
and it's like, don't let me out. Like, who knows what I could do if I get manic, or if I'm, whatever.
Right.
So uh working on that as well. Um, and like those are kind of like the big diagnoses, and a lot of them have like slightly shifted and changed over time, and
Sure.
understanding them a little bit more.
Okay.
Um, I don't think that anything was, I didn't have any huge, big, bad misdiagnoses, which is honestly so many in like that's in so many people's stories, is
Yeah.
misdiagnoses. Mine is like they were kind of slightly off, but it just need to be tweaked. So I'm grateful for that, because I never, um, it meant that I was never subjected to treatment that was so off base.
Right. And truly hurting you and not helping you, for example, like, yeah, to and make in both bipolar and borderline personality disorder, they're often misdiagnosed. Both of them.
Usually for each other.
Right.
A lot of people do get diagnosed as both. Um, but yeah, usually it looks like one is actually the other. Their treatments are actually pretty similar. Um, it's, if you medicate, the medication actually looks really similar.
Mm,
And uh, therapeutic treatment is kind of when, uh, one favors more like cognitive behavioral therapy, and one
gotcha.
favors dialectical behavioral therapy. And, like those
Okay.
can change. They're not huge.
Sure. Sure.
That's my experience.
That's nice. I mean, at least at least with some diagnoses that you can um get free, or be in control of your medication story with that, um when it's not enough for that. Uh, this is related and I think connected to um or compounded, or maybe compounded the agoraphobia? In what ways did your mental health issues impact your life as an adult prior to your disability? That would be in relationships, work, social life, all those things.
hmm So I think that talking about my challenges with relationships my whole life that I've experienced and how I've tried to get through them as an adult. I just, for me, I kind of was raised that like all interpersonal relationships that you have are they kind of are founded and kept moving by chaos. And
Mm,
like, if chaos wasn't an element in a relationship that I was in, I was gonna bring it. Like,
gotcha.
I'm a total chaos goblin. Um, and that comes from dysfunction,
Right.
and you start to think that that's normal. And so I think to every friendship and relationship, like romantic relationship, and uh uh, work relationship, all of
Mhm.
those, they were all very chaotic. Um, and I tried to tamp down as the chaos at work, but it would just kind of redirect into another part of my life.
Right.
I
Right.
think that that was the biggest, hardest part of my life, or my relationships. And I think that that's a big borderline thing, a big trauma
Okay.
response. Um, was that it had to be chaotic because if it wasn't, things just didn't feel right.
Mm,
Um, and I don't, know why on like a logical level. I don't think you can like logic your way through some of it, unfortunately.
right. Right.
Um, and I think that I brought a lot of chaos to these relationships, and then I would look around and I'd be like, where is everybody? Why is everyone abandoning me? And you get like
Mhm.
this really like bounce back, big bounce back from not understanding that like no one wants to be around you when you suck to be around.
Yeah.
And these are my words,
Yeah.
but um, and I had a really tough time recently with those, um, with relationships, and things just never seem to get any easier, and it something that I'm still working on. But then at work, well, I'll like move back to school even, because school relationships,
Mm,
um, I felt like just like work, I could show up. Um, I would do really well if I was only people only saw me for like a year and a half or 2 years.
mm,
They'd be like, "Oh, Ian works really hard. He shows up. He does a bunch of work." Like when I went back to school, and got my degree in math and everything, it's like, well, if I have a short period of time to just be consistently like high on the prize, I can do really well in that. But things start falling apart kind of around me, where my relationships start getting worse, and then at work, I start having, um, I'm just like a very intense person.
mm.
And that intensity that people once really liked in me because I did my job really well, now it's like kind of an asshole to work with.
Right.
I don't mean to be, I just kind of don't know where that middle ground is because I don't have like a gray area. I'm very like black and white in my
Gotcha.
extremes. So I think that that's a big part of just being out and about and around. It's just and I I really really struggle to find that gray area. And that probably also I think that's part of my ADHD as well. Just
Mm,
being a person of extremes. It
mm.
all kind of come all like, together makes me a person who's like very very black and white.
Yeah.
Um, and the agoraphobia, I think that it does affect my life probably less than some might think. Um, it's hard to tell what it would be like if I like lived closer to people that I knew,
Mm.
or, I think that would be kind of more of a distinguishing factor. But right now, it's like I live in a city where I don't really know anyone anyways, so.
Right. Right.
But it did make it harder for like the last um, like year or so of my marriage. Like, I just
Yeah.
couldn't drive my car, and so
Mm.
we were both kind of trapped, and
I went through that, but that was, yeah, di different reasons, same kind of problem. It was, yeah, it was, yeah, that's really tough. And then, yeah, it causes damage. So that I can understand better ho- and make sure to clarify something you said in regards to relationships is that if you were managing your relationships at work, then when you were away from work, all of that management was like it blew up outside on other relationships,
Mhm.
right? Is that kind of
Yeah,
what you were saying? Because it
I think.
it was being
Mhm.
contained and then
Yeah.
that had to be let out.
Yeah. If you're familiar with like the term masking, it's
Oh
often
yeah,
used with neurodivergent people.
yeah,
I
yeah,
was also like I was masking my neurodivergence and
yeah.
my other
Mm,
issues as well.
mm,
So I was like
that's
tightly like bound. And then I'd get home and I just like I can't make another decision. If someone like breathes in my if someone breathes wrong, I'm just gonna lose my shit. And it's like all of that like was from not managing all of my experiences, including the relationships at work. So very much masking. And like, but
okay.
even if I'm like having the release, quote unquote, of uh masking at home, I I didn't have I don't think I ever had a job for 6 years. Um, and even like the jobs that I've left, uh, I became disabled at, I loved. It was also super stressful, and I was going down the drain anyways. So, it's like you can only hold on, to that type of behavior. It's gonna come up if you're not
Com Completely relatable, but very different circumstances.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm glad you spoke about that the face of mania, and I'll call it that, or the manic section can be different. It because I've personally known a few people diagnosed with bipolar, and their manic was not the traditional like how it's portrayed. You've been on amphetamines kind of
Yeah.
experience, right? But
Yeah.
not that's not how everyone experiences that side. And so that's can lead to the misdiagnosis or just not recognizing that's what's happening.
Hmm. And luckily, I had enough agitation or whatever I needed to get that bipolar 2 diagnosis. Um, because a big issue that can happen is, and it's actually, so there is technically a diagnosis, but it's like, I think it's pretty weak diagnosis, but it's technically, well, that's not really, from what I understand, it always ends up moving to another diagnosis. So that's why I said it's weak. It's if you're diagnosed this way. I'm not trying to say that at all.
Yeah.
It's called drug-induced bipolar.
Oh,
And
interesting.
so
Okay.
it's where so one of the drugs, like so it could be a street drug or something, or it could be antidepressants.
Right.
Antidepressants
Right.
are usually, especially alone, are terrible for people who have bipolar. They often induce mania. Um, so it's like you can really like someone can have these behaviors, and I don't know where I was going with this, but yeah, so that's another way that people can be diagnosed, but usually they'll move to another form of bipolar diagnosis. It's just like that's how we found out was you had
Gotcha.
this drug-induced one. Um, but yeah, it really, um, it wasn't until I was actually diagnosed with bipolar one, and I was like, but hey, don't you need to be happy when you're manic?
Mm,
And or like you like, and it was like, no,
no.
no, you don't.
Right.
And that was really helpful for me because and that's why
Yeah.
I'm always trying to do advocacy for um, one of the 800 diagnoses I have because it's like there are so many variations that
Yeah.
aren't necessarily textbook um,
Hmm.
presentations of them. And when you were talking about your
Hmm.
depression, and I was said bipolar, your depression, and
Yeah.
how, it's not like, what you had seen
Mm-mm.
anyone really
Right.
talk about.
Right.
And, you know, if your voice and you telling your story is so important because there's someone out there whose story is
Right.
very, very similar.
Right.
So yeah, me, I just get to be like a cranky bitch. Like if I'm being totally honest, like I'm kind of on an upswing right now, and I am very cranky. I already texted my therapist and I was like,
Gotcha.
I'm pissed about it. I was
Yeah.
like, I'm so pissed about everything. And like,
Yeah.
so we're gonna talk later. That's gonna be
Yeah.
fun. But it's like that's me having the ability to know myself, catch
Yes.
trends and tamper them down before they blow up in my face. Whereas if I thought that feeling angry all the time was
Right.
normal and okay, and I just had to deal with it, then I might not be able to call it out as much.
Right. Yeah. That's really helpful. So yes, our kitties are both present. My kitty's tail is much skinnier than Scotty's
Nice.
tail. Kid, Missy
A
cat.
floofy in this house.
But yes.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, so it was really impacting every relationship. I assume familial relationships, but we've talked about that really kind of in the other two categories as well. But is there anything else you wanted to say in relation to the pre-disability um, section of your, I guess I'll call it your 20s, but post-adolescent pre-disability?
I think that let me see how I kind of want to word this. Um, I think that one of the biggest things I found with my um because I have so freaking many
Yeah.
diagnoses and
Yeah.
they're all good fits. It's not that they're like,
Yeah.
you know, throwing everything at the wall, seeing what
Right.
sticks. It's like, no,
Right.
this is what has stuck. This
Right.
is what has stuck.
Right.
Um, but for me, I am kind of able to kind of pull apart like, oh, this is like a borderline acting up, or this is my bipolar acting up. And I know that's not kind of how everyone sees it. They might see themselves as like a little bit more of like a holistic piece, and that's totally like whatever works
Right.
for you.
Right.
Um, but for me, it's helpful because when I see a diagnosis, no, when I see a diagnosis. There we go. It also usually comes with a treatment, right? So it's
Mm,
like, okay, well, if you are um, feeling a lot of anxiety and your anxiety disorder flaring up, well, the treatment for anxiety can be breathing exercise, and then it's not all medication either.
right.
It can be breathing exercises, it can be talking to someone, it can be journaling, or all of those things. So if I can isolate kind of and even if it's just a symptom rather than just a broader diagnosis, then I can kind of work on that a little bit more, and um, kind of work on kind of getting better at that. But you know, it's always hard to talk about how my relationships have been challenging for me because I like it's always something that's very it's been very important to me. Um, one of the things about borderline is that it makes you so desperately not want to be alone, but everything that you do to people around you, if it's kind of fueled by borderline,
Mm-hmm.
it makes people want to be away from you.
Right.
And so it's this really, really tough position that you're in. And, even though I can say, like, I'm so glad that I don't meet all the enough criteria to have a borderline anymore, I still know that I have enough traits that I still have to work on that. And even if you don't have something, even if you don't have borderline, being being mentally ill, having mental health challenges does put strain on relationship or can put strain on relationships. And so I think like keeping kind of your finger on the pulse of those relationships and making sure that they're still healthy and you know, looking out for, you know, toxic behaviors, codependence, like all of those things that can be really easy to overlook and they just kind of form gradually over time. Um, I think that uh, they're a lot easier to develop than a lot of people realize. And then they eventually, like, it's like 10 years down the line, they look back and how did it even kind of get to us? So kind of keeping your eye on relationships and keeping them as healthy as you can. Um, you know, definitely
So,
something
what
you can
I'm
do for that.
hearing as a consistent message throughout is self-awareness.
Yeah, I would say if you can do it, I
Yeah.
think it's helpful.
And often that times that does take some outside perspective, hearing from other people, here's the pattern I'm seeing. And then you have to do some self-evaluation and, oh, okay, yeah. I mean, because, yeah, self-awareness is that's the hard work part that we have to do, and no medication's going to do it for us. Ultimately, talk therapy isn't going to do it for us. It might help us with a piece of it, but they don't see us in our everyday lives.
Yeah. And I do think that also if, self-awareness is very challenging, uh,
Hmm.
takes practice like everything else. But also some people, need an additional hand. And it's
Yeah,
like that's what having a support system of people who are
yeah,
honest with you about
yeah,
what's going on. You can be like, well, I need to talk about it with a friend who sees me frequently. It's helpful to have people like that in your life.
right,
Which is why I wanted to bring in like support system, in like all the interviews I did, where it's just because it's so important to every facet of mental health, I feel.
right. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think every person, period, the more self-aware you are, regardless of any diagnoses, regardless of if you're just getting through life, being self-aware of your own patterns and how they might be impacting your life can make a really big difference in all the relationships, the work relationships, the home relationships, the romantic, the family, all of it. Um, it so self to me, self-awareness is everything, and that's what I have heard consistently through years. But self-awareness, when you also have a mental health concern, often takes something, someone, many someone's outside of yourself to help you with that.
Mm.
But then you get to know yourself and, oh, okay, I recognize this pattern now.
Yep, definitely.
So I think that was the last question, but let me double check. I'm pretty confident. Yes, that was the last question. I figured that would be the long one.
Mhm. Yep.
But
Show me to wrap it up.
yes, let's go ahead and do that.
Okay. Um, so that is the end of our second interview. Thank you again, Lori,
Yeah,
for being
absolutely.
here and being amazing. Um, and we will be doing a third interview to talk about what comes after adulthood. I
Yeah.
guess I don't know. I don't know.
What
But
what
what
comes
comes next?
after the big
Spoiler alert.
The big, the big word that changes your life.
Yeah.
Not diagnoses. Yeah.
But thank you everyone for watching, and we will talk later.
All right. Bye.